What's the point of lucid dreaming? There is no point in lucid dreaming, but it's quite an interesting thing to do to make you think about how the brain works, or consciousness, in my eyes, okay? So I'll tell you how I see it. So to lucid dream, you basically need to get your nighttime self and your daytime self acquainted with each other. Now, the nighttime self is strange, and the daytime self we think of as normal. This is a critical, analytical kind of thing, and this one will swallow anything, you know, literally flying elephants and pink rivers and everything, you know, and you don't even blink. But you always intuitively know that it is you. You never question yourself or your existence within a dream. So that gives us the first clue. First clue is that the self at night time and the self in the daytime are exactly the same thing. They're not two separate things. So what is the thing that is actually altered? The only thing that is altered is the environment. And the same thing is here. It's a different environment, okay? Completely different environment. It's these two together that come together, and you get an emergent scenario, an emergent paradigm. That is your daytime self. And the same thing here. You get an emergent paradigm, and that's your nighttime self. Otherwise, you're exactly the same person. Each one is exactly as real. The scenarios that they're in are exactly real. There's nothing untruthful about your nighttime self at all. There's nothing more truthful about your daytime self. Nothing at all. So this is how I come to that conclusion. Or maybe not, but this is how I look at it. So what you have is, we swap over very quickly from our nighttime self to our daytime self, so quickly you don't even notice it happening. And if you can expand that handover time, that little kind of minute half a second, 1/3 of a second, 5 seconds, whatever, that you take to wake up, and you pass over the baggage of dreams, you know, those strange things that, you know, you quite comfortably experience without questioning in nighttime, and then you pass them off, a kind of a very torn, summarized version of it, and you only really, you know, see little bits of it really. What we want to do is we want to try and bolster this part so we get as fresh a copy of the dreams as possible. And to do that, we need to expand this kind of bridge area that's between nighttime and daytime. So that handover area has to be more rigorously policed and expanded, and we do that with a diary. So you keep a diary, and very importantly with the diary is it's got to be kept open with a pen ready, with the page ready, because the last thing you want to do is be doing more daytimey kind of things while you're trying to remember the dreams that are being handed over. And daytimey kind of things are like thinking in order, in a logical order. Where is my book? Let me get the page out. Is my pen there? Is it working? Once you do all those kind of things, you're really narrowing the window even more than what it was, you know. So you need to expand that window, and by doing that we want to do as little causal kind of things, you know. Do this to get that, to do that, to do this, which does not really exist in the same way in nighttime. So the more you do this, you'll find that this space between the two starts to expand, and you'll find that you'll remember more dreams. The details you have in your dream diary will be really quite expansive, and really it will help. What would help is that the nighttime self becomes acquainted to the presence of this kind of, I call it a causal agent, let's say, you know, something that just thinks in terms of effects, and you know, is very analytical and cynical almost, yeah, about everything, and minor details really matter to this one. But to the nighttime self, because of the environment that it's emergent in, it actually doesn't really take it that seriously. It really is more inwardly focused rather than outwardly focused into events and things around it. But what you'll find is, if you keep a diary like this and you keep on doing it, you'll find that this kind of handing over can be reversed. And what you'll find is that occasionally in your nighttime dreams, you'll find that your conscious analytical self becomes aware and is accommodated by the nighttime self, because it's already used to having this handover space. And it's happened to me. I've had it happen to me quite. I don't really see the point of lucid dreaming, to be honest, other than the fact that it's actually quite interesting but ultimately worthless. But I'll give you an example of a really perfect lucid dream I had. So I'm running, I know I'm in a lucid dream, I'm completely conscious, and I want to make use of it. It's very rare for it to happen, but these things will happen if you keep a diary and do it persistently. You'll have these opportunities. So I'm in a dream and I know everything's possible. I'm really within my own kind of inner landscape, and I need to find something worthwhile in this rare opportunity that I'm actually very, very lucid. So I see a car with some police officers in it, and that's a car, and I instantly know that police officers, authority figures, they're passively sat there in the car. If I interact with them, they look quite friendly, but I don't want to get involved with them and tangle with them, because I don't think that's a very fundamental kind of construct in my inner self, because that's probably a parental kind of symbol, and that's probably like an 8-9-year-old kind of thing, or something like that. I thought, I'm really quite lucid here. I can actually go for the real core stuff, see what is really under the bonnet of my mind. So I skip past the police officers, because that's an analytical mind thinking, and he has free agency in this dream. That's the good thing about the lucid dreaming. So I go past the police officers and I find a hole in the ground, and then I realise I've reached the nemesis. This is really a symbol that's really quite consequential, and it's the bunk beds of when we were little, when we were 5 or 6, and I feel like something of myself is in there, and my brother is in there, and something terrible is down there, and I have to go into that claustrophobic space, and it's soil, darkness, terror, and then I realise that actually I can't overcome that. That is a barrier, and lucid dreaming doesn't help with that barrier. It just lays bare what's already there and doesn't really help you. So ultimately it's just an interesting trick, really, but it did show me that that's something that happened when we had those bunk beds. I remember the time we had them when we were like 7 or 8. I remember the street we lived in, and I remember the place we lived in. That something emotionally happened to me that involved me and my brother, that we both kind of were affected by. And it's not the sort of thing that I live with day to day, but it's just interesting that through lucid dreaming and analysing yourself, you can actually see these artifacts of your deep past. And that's not the only one. There are going to be loads of them, but this is one of them, one of the bottlenecks, of which after the event I've always walked away and run away from, and there's going to be loads of them, but the interesting thing about the whole thing is that the fact that yourself in the nighttime and the daytime are exactly the same thing. They're equivalent, they're exactly no different to each other. Okay, that's self. Okay, sorry about all the scribbling, it just makes me think easier. So the self in the daytime is actually just kind of the daytime self is just some sort of thing that's reacting to the environment, that kind of environment which you can manipulate so easily because it's so consistent. That environment is consistent and it's persistent. You wake up, the book, the diary that you left there at night time is there still. It's not moved, because there are rules and laws and physics that work, and then you can kind of navigate them around quite particularly, quite methodically, quite mathematically. You can navigate this kind of 3D world in a 3D way, and that kind of manipulates that self as well, and that creates a kind of daytime self. So it's actually an emergent thing that requires the environment to actually create it. And the same thing with your nighttime self. You don't have this. The absence of this creates a different type of emergent self. So exactly the same self, if it experiences a kind of a non-3D, non-kind of Newtonian space, it kind of creates one type of self. And if it experiences a kind of a 3D space, navigable kind of 3D space, then you get a different type of self. But they're always exactly the same thing, and they're always acting and reacting genuinely to the inner forces and the outer forces. So they're both actually as real as each other, and even though the maths of the symbols and everything that come out look different, but actually they're just as real and true, but the language is different. The order is different. The ordering is not as important as this. We are ordered here, we are unordered here, but it's exactly right that the elements and the objects within this world here are as valid and true and real as this one. And some of these are more real and more revealing in this side, and even on this side, some of them are more revealing unreal on that side. I hope that made sense. The end.